Hello and welcome to the Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wayne Lou. Make sure to find the Raptor Show wherever you listen to podcasts, and please rate and review the program. Blake Murphy, your host, William Lou. Sorry, we're a little distracted because the Raptors just had a press conference, and we are working to get the clips ready for those because a lot to discuss from last night's game.
It's just their usual practice media availability.
Yeah.
We don't need to. But Scotty Barnes
fine.
spoke and Darko spoke, and you can guess what they probably spoke about. And it wasn't, holy crap, Wemby had 10 blocks, isn't he so cool? That's what we're going to talk about a little bit, but not what the Raptors were being asked about today at practice.
Yeah, this is why your man literally froze on air as I came up. I forgot to tell you that this show is brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. It's time to get fired up. So we will bring you those quotes when we have them. Our producer Ahmed is upstairs furiously clipping those together and getting those ready for the show. But in the meantime, the Raptors lose last night to the Spurs, not particularly close. They lose 122-99. Darko has to call the first timeout after a minute and 20 seconds. He has to call the second timeout. Raptors down the entire way. Never really looked like they were anywhere close to competing with a team that is literally the second worst team in the league by record.
Third worst now.
Third? Wow.
Detroit and Washington. This is obviously the huge silver lining. Is it's likelier today than yesterday that the Raptors picked 31st instead of 33rd.
It's a new version of tanking right here.
Yeah,
it's a 2-for-1 tanking special.
It's not that. It's not that. It was really bad, man. Like you mentioned, the timeout, 80 seconds into the game, down 8-0. Looked like they had never even seen tape of Wemby before, even though they have played him already this year, and he's the most kind of must-see guy in the league this season. So that was bad. And then, it wasn't even 7 full minutes into the game before the second timeout came around. Wemby was already like, okay, everyone, I'm on 5x5 watch. I'm on quadruple double watch. Let's go. Look, we haven't seen a player like Wemby before. He's incredibly special, but to come out and play in the first quarter and really the whole first 3 quarters, like you had never even thought of the possibility of someone like Wemby before, was pretty bad. You also didn't just get cooked by Wemby. You lost the minutes he didn't play. Devin Vassell had a great game. Jeremy Sohan was pretty solid. Like
he was really good defensively.
Yeah. Like you got Keldon Johnson came in off the bench, was like plus 50 or something like that. Like you got beat by a Spurs team that, again, before last night, had won 10 games. And it's a pattern, man. We'll talk about the Scotty end of game stuff as we go in the show. And obviously we'll do a lot of positive Wemby stuff, but this is too big a habit now where they're I get that some people want losses because they'd rather have the pick this year, et cetera, et cetera. Even if you were blatantly tanking, coming out and getting pasted by 23, down 30 at one point to a team with 10 wins, that is not how that is supposed to look. That's not how the energy and focus is supposed to look. That's not how the start of games are supposed to look. This is becoming a bit of a pattern, man.
Yeah, again, the Spurs don't typically do that. They had lost 7 in a row. They had lost every game on this road trip. They had
not great teams.
They had just played the Brooklyn Nets and lost by 20 points. Dennis Schroeder, friend of the program, came off the bench for 15 points and 12 assists on that one.
They are chanting Dennis Schroeder's name at Barclays Center, and then that team comes in and beats you, at one point by 30. I think the final is, 23?
Yeah.
30 point. You're getting 30-pieced by a team that Dennis Schroeder just, literally had the crowd chanting for. Remember Jalen Rose standing on the scorer's table in the middle of, a big comeback in, a 30-win season? That's what the Nets just did, and you lost to the team that they did that against.
And look, I think it's clear that the Spurs played a really good game.
Yeah.
And, of course, I think the Raptors were taken by surprise by it. I think the Raptors also played a really poor game. But I think it begins and ends with just Wemby. I mean, this is the second time I've seen him in person. First time I've seen him in Toronto. And everyone made sure to get there early for the game. There was a lot of media before the game as well. Everyone is just, sitting along the baseline or sitting along the courtside seats, essentially getting ready in position to see him come out, warm up, and just, go through the routine. And we have to start there because the story of the game is Victor. Victor just put up, a triple-double with blocks, right? 10 blocks. The funniest thing with the blocks, and I went back to watch it, it was so impressive to me. So he had 10 blocks. 9 times after he blocked a shot, the Spurs recovered a possession. And the one time he didn't recover possession was when he had the double block on Scotty. So 9 out of 9 times when he played defense and that resulted in him getting a block, the Spurs got possession out of it.
Which is not the usual, right? Like a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of time blocks end up out of bounds or they get deflected somewhere else. It's a huge like it's always the thing old heads point to about we don't have the numbers for it, but like Bill Russell always came down with the ball
Yeah.
after the block when you hear old heads talk about it. And it's like anytime someone like spikes a block into the fourth row, people are like, nah, Bill Russell wouldn't have, you would have kept possession. It's
Yeah.
that's a hugely valuable thing because like a block is obviously good anyway, eats up the shot clock, forces you into a worse shot and stuff. But that is a possession ending block, which is obviously way more valuable. And yeah, 9 of them is crazy.
9 is nuts. You went up perfect 9 for 9. It's not just the 10 blocks, but it's also the way he dominated the game and the way he sort of approached it. Even just watching him warm up and stuff like that, I wasn't aware of
There's
this.
different depths.
It's a totally different depth with him, man. It's like the shooting was on a different level. The warm up dunks that he was doing was on a different level. The fact that
Although
everyone is buzzing and looking at him, man.
He had a rough layup line for dunks. Like right a couple minutes before the game, we were sitting up there like waiting, and he kept throwing himself self lobs, and he just couldn't get it to go there for a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, the stat line is the stat line: 27 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 10 blocks. He's the first person to do a points, rebounds, blocks triple double since Clint Capella.
I thought you were going to say since Hassan Whiteside.
No,
Whiteside had a couple of those.
Clint Capella did it in 2021. The last one before
Pancake
that was
Mamba.
Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis was also the last person to do it in a 20-point game. If you want a 25-point game with 5 assists, you got to go back to like David Robinson.
Yeah.
He's the first rookie to do it since David Robinson. Like there's just however
Yeah.
you want to capture it like that. There's nobody who does this. And like he's scratching the surface. Like he only played 29 minutes and he had 7 turnovers, several of which were like completely avoidable as he gets more experience and learns how teams are going to defend him and things like that. So, man, it's wild. Did you have a favorite like Wemby highlight? Oh, sorry, I have one last thing on the stat line. Can I be like a stats truther here for a second?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Go ahead.
The 10th and final block,
Yeah.
should not have been a block.
Why?
Grady didn't hit the rim on his own shot and caught the ball. It should have been a travel. Grady shot again. Yeah.
Wow. Boo.
But like,
Boo.
but Wemby would still get credit
Boo this
because
man.
he scared Grady into the air ball, and then Grady caught his own rebound. But yeah, obviously it's incredible. Did you have a favorite or a couple of favorite of the Wemby moments?
I got a whole top 5 of craziest Wemby plays because that was the thing I
Okay.
kept mentioning leading up to this game was the reason you have to go watch him, and especially if you can get a chance to see him in person, is he'll make 5 plays that you have never seen before in that sort of from those angles or from a man of that size. Okay. The first one, the Spurs from a backdoor lob, he misses it on the dunk attempt, catches his own dunk, and then he throws a no-look dime to Jeremy Sohan cutting through the lane for the dunk. And it was the beautiful look away. I think this one was actually clipped out and went around on social media. But like a genuinely no-look play where because he didn't look at it, both RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl, who were both like a little scrambled, a little confused, looking at Wemby, being like, "Oh my God, he just got his own rebound after he blocked him on a dunk." With him not looking, actually fed Sohan with the dunk. It's just such a beautiful play for a man of that size. Another play where, second quarter in particular, Wemby was just living on that right block, turning around, facing up, and just giving guys work. And one of the 2 plays was he faced up against Kelly Olynyk. Olynyk played great defense. Probably the best defense played against Wemby last night was by Kelly, which is a little surprising, I guess, considering you wouldn't think of Kelly as a defensive player, but did a good job against him, forced him in a couple turnovers. This time does everything perfectly. Kelly Olynyk, who's like at least 6'10", is facing up against Wemby. Wemby drives against him. Kelly beats him to the spot, jumps up, hands fully outstretched. Emmanuel quickly comes over with the rotating help. So there's a double team. Both guys there, verticality, challenging Wemby on the play. And they're perfect. And Wemby just throws in a jump hook over top of both of them.
That's the
completely
soft
unaffected.
touch off the glass one, right? Where
That's-
just a little kiss.
Yes, because I know you got a second one where he takes off. What's the other one? He's also on the right block. He takes off, and I think he has one. His back foot is on the dotted circle inside the paint. And he takes off from there, and he stretches his way for a dunk.
And like the angle
it
that he
doesn't make
pulls the
sense.
ball out from, like you'd think like a guy has to go up strong with 2 hands to bring the ball up and be able to dunk on someone. But like it honestly looked like he confused Yak, and just like as Yak was guarding the front hand, he just pulls the ball out of his back pocket with the other hand and dunks it on him. Like the physics of having arms that long and just being such a terrific player where like like obviously if you're defending him, you're in an immediate 9-1-1 situation, but like you have to play the dominant side or like the foot that's got middle or
Yes.
whatever, and he can just like with my backhand I'm just pull it out and also dunk it on you that way. It's
That's the thing.
you don't have enough limbs to guard that.
You can't really out leverage him. Like he will just outstretch you most times. And then another one where he's driving in transition, does a Euro step, and Kelly Olynyk is there in position to try to take the charge, ends up falling over to try to sell the charge, but creates a whole crowd. In any case, as Kelly's falling over, Wemby just reaches underneath Kelly's leg somehow and drops a bounce pass in traffic while all this chaos is happening perfectly to Keldon Johnson, who dunks the ball on the other side. Like, again, he's guy's 7'5".
Yeah.
He's not an 8-foot wingspan. You have to go see him the next time he's anywhere near where you are. You have to.
The other
Must see basketball.
Yeah, this is incredible. The other one, and I'm gonna forget. I'm literally just going to search LOL in my game notes. Control F. So there are actually a bunch. Oh, there's the Keldon Johnson outlet to him where like it doesn't. It's purely just a like. Well, Wemby's up there somewhere.
Yep.
I don't need to throw a good pass. Like I'm just going to launch the ball and someone will get it.
Yep.
It's crazy, man. Like it really does. Like obviously not to overstate it because they've won 11 games this year, but it really does change the possibilities that you have as a San Antonio Spurs just in terms of like how you play basketball. Like for all these guys, it's crazy that they haven't found a point guard because the point guard role, and Trey Jones was good yesterday. But the point guard role is like just throw the ball up.
Yeah. No, Wemby, honestly, this is no disrespect to NBA players. This is not coming from an arrogant place. Wemby's so good, I feel like I could record an assist playing a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably could.
Yeah. That should be a fan contest. That should be one of the halftime acts in
At the All-Star?
at the All-Star game. Can you get an assist
Yeah.
to Victor Wembanyama with like whoever guarding him? Jakob. Let's just say Jakob's in the way.
I mean, the issue here is not like who is guarding Wemby. It's who's guarding you to get that pass off.
No one's guarding
We know
me, to be
you're not
clear.
the most willing of passers in the first place.
Nobody's guarding me. I'm throwing a wide open lob.
Jose Alvarado is a lot different, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. And then like even like all the blocks are worthy of appreciation. And it's funny, like there's the quote after the game. Wemby got asked basically, like, do you feel an intimidation factor when you're starting to block shots like that? And his answer was like, oh yeah, I feel it. How could you not?
It's like interviewing Mike Tyson. It's like,
Yeah.
do you think the other guy's afraid you'll punch them in the
Yeah.
face? It's like, yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that is the Mike Tyson quote: is everyone's got a game plan until they get punched in the mouth. That's like Wemby's. That's going to be Wemby eventually. Is like, yeah, everyone's got an offensive system until I block 8 of their shots.
Yeah.
And then so let me ask you this. We'll turn it to the Raptors side of things here a little bit. What did you think of how the Raptors tried to attack Wemby? Because I could see someone making the case that, well, at least they stayed aggressive, at least they were still going at him, and fine. But I would also see the case of that is bad. Why would you keep going at Wemby? Like they didn't do a good job pulling him out of the paint. They didn't do a good job if they could pull him out of the paint of like, okay, attack somewhere else now that he's out of the paint or whatever. And some of that is Wemby's just going to make plays. And I appreciate, a Scotty Barnes still wanting to go at him here and there. But how do you think they respond on a night that they shot under 40% and 8 of 31 on threes and didn't get to the free throw line? What did you think of their offensive approach?
Well, first, I don't think they had a great plan. I think that's the first and foremost, right? Because if you're going to score against Wemby, and of course it's always easy to say, well, this is how Embiid did it when he had 70 on him. But, I think some of the principles at least apply. Like you need to bump him down low, neutralize him just a little bit, and then try to like finish up and over or maybe around. Of course, that's a lot easier said than done when he is that much bigger than everybody on your team, including your biggest players in Jakob and Scotty. But, again, you need to put some sort of a bump into him, create a little bit of space, and then shoot over the top. There are other instances where, like Kelly Olynyk, for example, shot him a ball fake a couple of times and was able to like get around him and elude him with some trickery. Like you can't do what Scotty and Jakob tried to do in the start of the third quarter, which was actually kind of funny to watch, even just as it happened. It was like, the Raptors got the ball to Jakob and they started clearing out. And I'm like, oh, they actually want to go make Jakob go one-on-one, Hell in a Cell style with Wemby. Okay. All right, sure. Let's see how it goes. And Jakob is like, all right, I'm going to back him down. Then I'm going to turn around. Then I'm going to up fake. I'm gonna get him to get closer to me. Then I'm gonna step under and through and finish off the glass. Patting the move. I'm sure he's done that to lots of bigs in his life. Does the move. All the things happen. He gets all the steps. He gets to the layup for the left hand, and Wemby's just like, actually, no. I like you, but no.
Yeah.
Okay. Just an easy block at the basket. And then Scotty, a couple plays later, he's like, all right, it's my team. I'm going to go against them. Let me see what I can do against them. You know, he does his little half spin and, you know, tries to get back to his strong hand, the right hand. And Wemby blocks him. He gets his own rebound, Scotty does, tries to go back with a strong putback, and Wemby blocks him again. And it's like, yeah, you need a better plan than that. You need to do what Kelly does with like the little ball fakes and up fakes and stuff like that, and hopefully step around him and through him and to get to the layup. Or you need to really bump him and to create some of that, you know, gap. Otherwise, you can't just do your regular moves against Wemby. That's the thing.
And it's like, you know, you look and it's obviously a tough night for Emmanuel Quickly shooting the ball. If a couple more of those threes drop, maybe that helps open things up. It's not a good night to be RJ Barrett. I know he shot 6 of 10, but it was more about the shots he didn't take in that one where just like those
open threes he turned down.
Yeah, and like the second side cuts and or like the ball swings around and you can drive. Like Wemby covers too much space for that to really thrive. They also San Antonio did a really good job snuffing out the Raptors transition game generally. In that one, even though they had 17 turnovers, they do a good job getting back and things like that. And then like and this has happened 2 games in a row now. Like bad night for Gary DiNocio also. And like, look, there are bigger problems than that, and we're gonna have the Scotty discussion. So I don't want to be like blaming it on Gary, RJ, and Quickly. But if you're looking at a team that has Victor Wembanyama in the paint, you need your perimeter players to come through, and neither of the 3 of them had particularly good games.
And that's the freaky thing too, because to tie it back to Wemby, there was one play in the first quarter where Quickly was just trying to drive and like try to attack a closeout. And he had like gotten his hips like level with Wemby, and he's quicker, so you would think he'd get past him. And Wemby just reached around him and then poked the ball away.
Yeah.
And I was like, how? That doesn't happen. Quickly is generally much more of a safer ball handler than that. But again, it's like playing against an alien. Yeah, I mean, to your point, your perimeter players needed to step up there. The three-point shooting needed to be there. Quickly, I thought he got a lot of good looks. He just couldn't drain any of them. And I think the process was good, but there is some concern to me in terms of just like the ups and the downs for him are just really, really notable. And I think that's fine. That's totally normal for a young player, especially one that is new to starting now versus coming off the bench. But I do feel like when you're putting him in that core 3, you know, somebody's got to be consistently steady, and ideally all 3 are consistently steady for you on a night-to-night basis.
It's a core 1 right now, and then guys battling to be a part of that. Like, look, there's no way around that. Quickly's been a little disappointing overall, and like, look, last night he shot 2 of 12, 1 of 9 on threes. Whatever, those nights are going to happen as he figures this out.
But the issue is defensively.
Yes, so that's where I was going. Is like he's been really underwhelming defensively. He has not been the defender we saw in New York, and maybe that is Thibodeau scheme related. Maybe that is having better defenders around him. But that's an area that you have more control over than is your 3 going to drop or like like look, you have control over if your floater game's there versus if you're more aggressive at the rim. But every coach and player in the history of basketball said you have more control over your defensive effort and your defensive execution night to night, and that's been like that's supposed to be there as a impact stabilizer while you figure the offense out. So that's been, not that anyone played particularly well defensively last night, but it's been a little bit of an underwhelming start for Quickly here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we see the highs, which is good. Like if we didn't see any highs, then you would be genuinely in a panic. But you see the highs. It's just how do you get him there offensively? Because that's where he primarily is going to do the bulk of his contributing, especially with the 3-point shooting, the off-the-dribble package. Like all those things are the things that the Raptors really need, and none of it's really coming off for him right now on a night-to-night basis. With RJ, we understand that he's able to get downhill and get to his left hand. And he did it a couple times yesterday, which was good. He also got blocked by Wemby a couple times, which is not good. The limitation there is a 3-point shooting for him. Sometimes he's not even willing to take them. And, it's almost similar to Pascal in a way. It's like you can find other ways to score for sure, but you also need to be good in terms of the team concept of scoring, in terms of like when the ball swings to you, you got to be able to make a play off of that. And the more he's not taking those threes, the more it's going to affect his ability to get downhill and attack, because teams are just going to sit back on him. So, I understand it's not a strength, but it's something he's got to stick through with because he needs to get there. Those are the secondary things. I think the main thing from last night is just you didn't see a battle of two stars, which is what happened last time you saw Wemby versus Scotty, and Scotty actually got the better of Wemby in that one. That was early in the season, and the Raptors made that huge comeback and won in overtime. Scotty was a massive part of that. Probably the best I've seen him play in that fourth quarter, and we were so effusive with the praise. This was the exact opposite of that.
It was. And like you can look at the stat line and it's 3 of 15 and Wemby blocked some of those. Scotty did an okay job at least trying to get his own rebound on some of them. He almost did. What did we end up settling on calling it? The 10-point, the Josh Hart triple double. He almost got there. He had 7, 9, and 9.
Triple double.
No, yeah, the one where you just skate across. We had talked about it with Josh Hart. But 7 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. So the playmaking is there, but he had 5 turnovers. I think more than the actual output is what it felt like throughout the game. And like you said, it didn't feel like star versus star. It felt like Scotty got pretty discouraged pretty early in that game, and that affected his energy and the force he was playing with. And he tried to get it back a little bit there in the second half and then got blocked a couple times in a row. Yeah. And it just kind of went from there. And there were a number of moments where, like, it's one thing if you are going toe-to-toe with a guy and he has your number that night and you just don't have it. But things like you make a bad turnover and you don't get back in transition, or you get beat on the first move on the block in a post-up and you don't finish the possession. Things like that are tougher because I think those can bleed into the energy of the rest of the team. Now, it's not his fault that the whole team came out flat to start each half, but those kind of things, like it does flow through him now. And he is, he is the on-court leader of this team now, but that also carries a responsibility to be the emotional leader of this team. And we'll play the clips a little later in the show when we have them. But Scotty more or less acknowledged this at practice today. He said he had 3 or 4 turnovers in the first quarter that led to easy fast break points. The emotion he shows and not getting back, he admitted that it cost them, and it's more being me frustrated with myself and the way I'm playing, which I can appreciate. You're a competitive guy. You're not playing particularly well, but part of his learning over this, the rest of this year and future years as he grows into, hopefully into a leader as well as being a top player for the Raptors is going to be, how to find that balance of, yes, you care a lot and that's good and you can show emotion, but you can't let it bleed into your play in a way that affects the energy on the floor. And just honestly, last night gave away points.
Yeah, I mean, all that is completely fair. I struggle with I care a lot. Care a lot would be you run back in transition. And there's so many instances last night where, it's different when you see it on the broadcast versus when you see it in person. Because the broadcast will follow the action. A turnover play, it goes the other way. You're going to follow the other team now score on offense. A lot of the times you can just watch how long it takes for him to get back in transition. And not like he fell over on a drive, now he has to pick himself back up, then he has to sprint all the way back, whatever. Like he's on his 2 feet, he gets blocked or he turns the ball over, has some sort of emotional reaction to it, and then takes 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds to get back.
Yeah, it's unacceptable.
Just to even cross half, to even get back into the TV frame, right? In person, it's way more noticeable than that.
Well, because you see that it's not a slow jog back or not something happened. Yeah. It's a take a couple steps, collect my wits or emotions or whatever, and then get back. And it's and there's that. There was an instance last night where off a turnover, I think made like a frustration read in transition defense that ended up leaving the rim exposed, trying to get a steal or man the ball instead.
So that he was early in the first quarter. He threw a behind the back pass.
This is the one to Jakob?
To nobody. I don't even know who it was. Okay. Straight to the Spurs. Then on the turn in possession, he's level with Wemby, and he's the last man back because he had the ball bringing the ball up. And instead of running with Wemby all the way, he instead sprints forward into the play to try to pressure the ball or something. I don't even know. That's not a good defensive read by any means. And then they just throw the pass from like half court to Wemby, who catches the lob on a reverse and finishes it.
Yeah, and like I get it. You thought going to the ball, but like your first fire is your first fire against San Antonio is always pick up Wemby, but it's the rim first and then the ball in transition defense. So that and I don't know. There were other examples where he didn't even get back into the play like that to even make a mistake. And the one that stuck with me honestly was Wemby's posting him up at one point right in front of the Raptors bench. And Scotty's got good, like, low base at first. The shot's not really there. And then Wemby beats him baseline. And, like, this is more of a Wemby big picture talk, but, like, I don't know that teams are ever going to be able to, like, double his posts when he goes baseline the way that we do with other bigs, where, like, they're a little more prodding or you can take away angles and get it under their hands because, like, he has the ability to just, like, reach out and finish from so many different ways. Like, the baseline is not the same restriction for him that it is for everyone else because his arms are so long and his strides are so long. Anyway, He beats Scotty baseline. And then Jakob actually ends up coming back. Jakob gets called for the foul, but he almost pins Wemby on the backboard. But Scotty completely gave up on the play.
Dude, he just stood there.
His hands are down at his sides. And like
Yeah.
that's one
That's why you can't tell me it's care.
Yeah.
That's not care. That's not like I hate to
Yeah,
I hate
you
to
foul
lose.
out in 18 minutes because you're trying to make too many plays and you're
Yeah.
making fouls of of commission instead of omission.
Yeah.
It's tough, man. It's not a good look as he gets handed the reins here, both on the court and like look at who's left around the locker room. Like he's the leader of this team now.
Yeah.
And that's we can acknowledge that he's 22 and that it's a brand new role. He's only been the number one guy for a couple weeks here. It's going to take some time, but you really have to hope that a night like last night and the response to it, the response to him leaving the court early after, Darko said he thought it was a shot clock violation and the game was over. But either way, Scotty took accountability for that at practice. You have to hope that this is one of those, light goes on moments about what it does mean to be a leader on a night that you're not playing your best.
Yeah, and I think anytime this discussion gets brought up, people want to throw other things in the way. Like, there were there moments where DeMar DeRozan didn't get back on defense? Absolutely. Were there moments where Kyle or Fred or Pascal, whoever you want to put in this mix, didn't get back in defense? I'm sure there were moments where Kawhi didn't get back on defense.
Yeah, I think Chris Herring, back when he was at Grantlander 538, I actually wrote about this because DeMar and Kyle were like among the league leaders as far as we could track it in like you fall down and don't get back quickly enough.
Yeah.
So he's not the first guy to deal with this, but like, yeah.
I think that you can always like throw other sort of facets in this, but I don't think it's like, I think these are such important learning moments for a young team looking to make the next step and for Scotty looking to make the jump to becoming a leader for this team and hopefully bringing them to the heights that those other guys did, because it's like you need to sit with it when you actually have a bad game like this. There needs to be a discussion, and I'm happy that they had a discussion. I'm happy that Darko called it out, at least, in terms of the conversations that he had. I'm happy that Scotty acknowledged it as well, because you can't just like every single time something happens, you just deflect and you say, well, this. That's not productive. That's in the past. This is now. You are the future and you are the now, right? And you can't let instances like last night happen on a consistent basis. You are guaranteed to lose when your star player quits that often on that many plays.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who it is. Like, you know what I mean? So you have to grow in that sense. And I guess my question to you is just like, are there instances, can we point to certain instances where it's like a player grew in the mentality? Because I think sometimes when you see adversity does reveal that character, right? I thought last night was an adverse moment, right? And the character was, not revealing in the ways that I think that we would like to see. We would love to see the compete. We love to see the scrap, trying to go right back at Wemby. And even if you got blocked, go back at him in the next play, not disengage. Can you get that back? Like, can you improve in mentality?
Yeah, absolutely you can.
Okay.
Yeah, there are like, look, we actually just got a question from Jaspreet on Twitter about how losing affects players, especially when they've come from like winning their whole lives. And there's no answer. Like this is going to depend on the person and the culture around them and the way that they respond to it. There are countless examples of guys who got broken by it. There are countless examples of guys who got into losing programs, stayed there too long, and built bad habits that are like, look at the Washington Wizards and the jokes we make about Jordan Poole now and things like that. But also look
at Jordan Poole, he's having a tough couple
about
weeks.
as bad as it is. And then there are examples of guys who, have been humbled like this and let it, really fuel where they were going. There are guys who it's just clicked for late. Like there's no one answer. All we can do is look at what's happening right now and say, if this were to continue, like right now, it looks like a problem. And look, there's nothing saying that at 22, Scotty Barnes can't use this, understand it, and the next adverse moment handles it a little better, and it won't be linear, but he improves. But there's also nothing saying that he will improve for sure, because there are guys for whom it's just never clicked and it's never come around. So, it's going to come down to the individual and how Scotty answers not only this being, hey, your team got sunned by Wemby a little bit, you lost the star versus star battle, you let your emotions bleed in the court, but like, this is also the first time that something like this has happened with the Raptors, where Scotty is the voice everyone wants to talk to. Like Fred for a couple years was the guy that would have to go out there after bad games and talk. And then it was Pascal a little bit, or Jakob. Scotty is now in this position for the first time where he's going to have to be publicly accountable, not just for himself, but for the team's performance, because you're the guy. And how he responds to all of that stuff is really it's going to determine a lot about what his ceiling is and where this franchise can go. I don't mean to put extra pressure on him, but when you are the number one guy, that is not just about your usage rate and how many front court touches you have and how many dribbles per touch and stuff like that, or what your BPM is. Like, this is also about what you are and what you develop into as a leader off the court. And again, lots of time for that.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a big challenge for him the rest of the year because the Raptors aren't going to win a lot of games. There are going to be a lot of nights where he's frustrated, whether with himself or the team's performance, and we'll have to see over these next 30 games, an improvement in those areas.
Do you think it was fair for the franchise to put all this on him immediately?
I mean, it's year 3, so it's not immediate, and there were those pieces around, and it didn't work out, and there were obviously rumors and suggestions about what those conflicting styles were like and things like that. There's a new head coach who's in here, like They've
changed every single piece. You're right.
There were only 3 players left who were here before the deadline last year.
Yeah, honestly, you can't tell me with any certainty that Chris Boucher and Gary Trent Jr. are going to be on this team past next year. Chris is also...
And even if they were, are those voices that carry more weight than Scotty Barnes's or that Scotty Barnes is hearing? No. Like,
My point is, those guys, when those guys move on, Scotty will be the longest tenured player on the team.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And also, in terms of, is it too much too fast? Like, it's a lot of change really, really quickly, but it's also been coming for a little while. And this is, I don't know if this is exactly specifically what Scotty Barnes wanted, but you want to be the number one guy. This is the stuff that's going to come with it. And it's not like they've stripped this down and like there's only 19-year-old G League guys around. I'm like, he still has, Kelly's there, Jakob's there, Bruce Brown's there. Like, there's support and stuff like that. But his voice is going to be the loudest now, and his body language is going to be the loudest. And that's an important thing for him to take on. We got to break and get to Joe Wolf on, but do you have a spicy take for me?
Yes, I do have a spicy take for you, and it is now that time for that spicy take. Brought to you by New Chunky's Spicy Soup. Are you ready to get fired up? Okay.
I'm already fired up. Let's go.
We're both very fired up. The spicy take is not about Scotty. I mean, like, we've had this discussion many times. The spicy take is Victor Wembanyama is going to be the best player in this entire generation. And when I mean this entire generation, I mean plus or minus like 5 draft classes drafted before him and 5 draft classes drafted after him. So I guess this is in 11 draft classes. Like, he is going to be undeniably the best player in this entire generation. It'll be, honestly, it will be really disappointing if he didn't win Rookie of the Year just because Chet is playing for an OKC team that is much, much more talented and much, much more advanced in terms of what the players around them are. Because when you look back on it, it's not even going to be close between those 2 players. And that's all due respect to Chet, who is a really, really good player on his own. If Wemby didn't exist, we would fawn over Chet probably more than we currently do. But there is just an absolutely different level. There's so many plays that Wemby makes that you have never seen before that forces so many players to just fundamentally change their game. He's going to be a game-breaking defensive player, and we saw that last night with 10 blocks. Again, with 9 of those recovered for possession. And then the other part, too, is having seen him warm up and stuff like that, his skill set isn't as raw as I think it was prescribed coming in. I think Draymond talked about it coming into the league. He's like, well, he's going to be great defensively, no doubt. He's so tall and everything like that. But offensively, he's going to have to like play off of other people. No. Victor does not have to play off of other people. Other people have to play off of Victor from now until whenever he's done his career. When you even just watch him go through his warm-ups and things like that, the 3-point shot is at a very consistent level already. The mid-range shot, the moves that he's able to get to the mid-range are already at a really consistent level. And this is as worst as he's ever going to be. This is as bad as he's ever going to be, is at this current level. So, yeah, Victor's going to be the best player of his generation, and it's not going to be close. And that means he's going to be a top 10 player of all time.
Yeah.
Already.
I mean, he's already doing
not
stuff
already
that, like,
right now, but, like, when you look back on in the future, he's going to be a top 10
player. Yeah, like,
There's
I thought my Basketball Reference stat head was broken yesterday because I'm trying to look up Wemby stuff, and it's like, well, nobody in the database. I'm like, but Wemby's doing it.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. It's pretty remarkable. And look, there are lots of other cool prospects. Chet's cool. Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey, whatever.
Yeah.
Like there are gonna be more cool guys.
I see that guy in the Leafs locker room. Yeah, the banner.
But it's really hard to see a scenario where, barring injury, Wemby isn't the best player. Like, look, we've grown up on LeBron James. I'm not ready to say he'll be the best player we've ever seen because LeBron James is top 2 at worst.
Short of that.
But yeah, he's going to be the best player any of us are going to watch in the next 15 years.
Who do you think will have a better career when it's all said and done? Wemby or KD?
Probably Wemby.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Like, again, barring health, because that's always the
Sure,
concern with a
sure.
7'5" guy and
Absolutely.
anyone really.
But he doesn't play recklessly either,
No.
you know?
And like this is why, Kevin Durant has dealt with injury stuff, but like he's not really slowing down at 35
Mhm.
because like, yeah, his style of play suits well the hey, I can just get a little more perimeter oriented, whatever. Yeah, that's crazy to think about because KD has an MVP and a ring, two rings
Yeah.
and an MVP. So,
Wow. Victor's just got to join
but like
OKC.
you would absolutely
He's
take
just gotta join,
take the
Golden
over
State, I mean.
1.5 on Wemby MVPs right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So,
dude, it's absurd how good he is.
Mhm.
It is absolutely absurd. He's a game breaker. He's an absolute game breaker. Anyway, we're gonna take a break. Been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. Welcome back to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Lou. Joining us for segment 2 as we figure out what exactly actually happened after this Scotty Darko discussion, because there are now lots of conflicting reports from the two of them. They're directly now contradicting each other. But listen, we're going to get to the end of that. We're going to sort it out in segment 4 with Michael Grange. In the meantime, we're going to bring in Joe Wolfon of The Score. Wolfon, I just gave my spicy take that Wemby is going to be the best player of this entire generation. And when I said that, I meant the 5 drafts before Wemby and the 5 drafts after Wemby plus this current one. He's going to be undeniably the best player in that whole stretch. Do you have a rebuttal to that? Or what are your general thoughts on the Wemby experience after we just saw it live in Toronto yesterday?
Yeah, I haven't scouted enough 13-year-olds to know whether he's going to be the best player from the next 5 drafts, but I think it's a pretty safe bet. I mean, he's insane. I've never really seen anything like him before, just in terms of like the sheer size and length and the way that he's able to move his body and his understanding and his feel for the game at this young age. It's pretty special stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I think honestly, it feels to me like it's more likely than not that he's going to be the best defensive player in the year. The best defensive player in the league within like a couple of years.
So that gets you thinking, or it gets me thinking at least, Joe, and I know you're a guy who likes to kind of, okay, there's this special thing. What is the response to it? What is the trickle down? What is the ecosystem effect of this? When you look at Wemby defensively, like he might be able to be a defense unto himself as long as you have competent guys around him. And then offensively, like yesterday, the Spurs are just throwing lobs like in the general direction of the paint and assuming he's going to catch him. How much have you let yourself start thinking about, okay, this team's only won 11 games right now, but it's not going to take much for them to be good. And Wemby's, just there's nothing like him. We're going to have to rethink a lot of things at both ends of the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what you do with him as a defender, like, because there's no, even if you want to try to stretch him out, essentially, like play 5 out with shooters at every position, I mean, his ability to cover space and to recover almost renders that moot. Like, you could have him helping in the paint and still getting out to contest and probably even block a 3-point shot. So I don't think there's a way to scheme around him, really. I think you kind of just have to live with it and just try to probably put him. It feels a little bit counterintuitive because a defender with that kind of impact, typically you want to try to avoid them. But I think the way to do it might be actually to just put him in as much action as possible, like force him to navigate as many of those ball screen actions or off ball screening actions as you can to tire him out, not only physically, but mentally. Like, you just make him have to make a ton of decisions in a short amount of time and hope that that can kind of get him turned around. Because otherwise, I think, I don't know, we saw this a little bit. I'm not like comparing the two, but with Anthony Davis in that series between the Lakers and the Warriors last year, when I think that the Warriors' answer to him eventually became to just like put him in as many of those ball screen actions as possible, try and pull him away from the rim, and just try and get him involved so he couldn't be like that completely destructive backline helper on all those different possessions. So I think something like that, it's not really a way to scheme around him. It's more just a way to maybe like tire him out and get yourself to a point where maybe you can stretch him past his breaking point.
Yeah. It's it's funny because you don't ever talk about rookies like this, but that's why he's such a special talent. Like, you actually need to think about strange strategies or unique strategies that you would have to go against this team that's like only has 10 wins on the season. But, he is going to be at that level very, very soon. And he pretty much already is there already. I mean, I know you're a big fan of Trae Young. I think one time on this podcast, you called him maybe a generational passer. I think maybe the second best passer in the entire league, if not the best passer. You like Trae Young as his point guard? Because I think that's the thing. It's like whoever gets to play point besides Wemby for the next 10 years, let's say, is going to be so lucky. Like, you are signing up to be John Stockton, buddy, basically.
I can think of almost no better fit for either of those guys than to play with each other, honestly.
Okay.
And I know it's like Blake was saying, right? Like the Spurs can kind of just throw the ball up in the vicinity of the rim, and Wemby's going to be able to go and get it and dunk it. So it's almost like maybe Trae's passing wouldn't actually be as much of an additive element there, because you don't need to be this like precise lob passer necessarily to set Wemby up for these finishes. But I just think, his ability to, like, he is a maestro in the pick and roll. And it's not just about his passing ability, or like not just about his ability to hit the roll man in those situations, but his ability to manipulate defenders with hesitation dribbles, with his eyes. And I mean, it would be absolutely ridiculous as a pick and roll partnership, those two guys playing together. And also, like, I mean, Wemby loves to run the floor, and Trae is an unbelievable hit ahead passer. So I think even like in transition, they'd be absolutely deadly. And then, if you're looking for a perfect situation for Trae to land in and where he could be insulated defensively, there's not much more you could ask for than a guy who's 7'4" with an 8-foot wingspan who can gallop around the court like a gazelle. So I think that would be pretty special.
Yeah. Colored me a little skeptical. Atlanta's actually going to move on from Trae Young to build around DeJounte Murray and all the wing players in San Antonio. They'd get back in that trade who DeJounte Murray was already playing with, and the Spurs were like, "No, we got a tank."
They could get their own picks back.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to go down, but it's certainly fun to think on. Pivoting off of Wemby, Joe, Immanuel Quickley has struggled a little bit of late with the Raptors, and that's happened more on the defensive end than the offensive end. But we've seen some rough offensive nights, and we've seen the floater not drop as much as it had in New York. I don't have a ton of concern about the floater shot big picture, but I know that you are the floater guy. You're the only guy I could talk to about Etuan Moore. You wrote about it not that long ago, and then the Raptors went out and got a couple of floater guys. In Quickley's first games with the Raptors here, what have you noticed about that particular part of his game and what he might be able to, crib from guys who have really leveraged that elite skill in a way that he hasn't quite been able to yet in Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the issue is, like, when I wrote about it, I wrote about how devastating it could be as a counter and as a sort of fallback when you're facing these sort of deep drop coverages and you basically don't have any option. You're getting squeezed into that in-between space because you have a defender sort of trailing over top of the screen. They're forcing you off the arc. And then you have the rim protectors standing between you and the basket, and you kind of have to have that floater in your back pocket. And I think you're seeing with Quickley the difference between using that as a fallback weapon where you're leaving the defense no good options and using that as sort of your plan A. And I would just really like to see him use it more in sort of the former context where he has the threat of getting all the way to the rim, and that is forcing defenses to account for that and then maybe concede that floater. And for him, that's more of a second or third resort rather than the thing that he's always looking to get to. I just think he has been using it too much as a crutch. And I know it won't look as bad as it does right now when I don't know, he was shooting like 51 or 52% from floater range with the Knicks, and that's been down under 40% with the Raptors, and I just don't really have a good explanation for why that's happening. So it looks worse, I think, than it ordinarily would, given how good he has been at shooting those floaters. But I just find myself getting a little bit frustrated with him at times with how quickly, no pun intended, he wants to abort some of those drives and put those floaters up rather than trying to, even if it's not to get a layup, but just keep that dribble alive a little bit longer, prolong the drive, maybe, Nash and sort of see what opens up when you're dribbling underneath the basket, things like that you just don't really ever see him do. I think it's more that's kind of like my overarching concern with him as a lead guard is I think he's just, whether it's because he doesn't trust his finishing ability or because he doesn't trust his handle in traffic, he, I think, is just killing his dribble a little bit too early, a little bit too often.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about, going back to our discussion on Trae Young. Like, one of the things that Trae Young just absolutely drives you crazy with is he'll turn the corner on the pick and roll, and then when he goes for the floater, you can't tell if it's a lob to Capella or if it's a floater for himself. And I feel like having a lob catcher is really something that can open up the threat of the floater quite a bit. And I feel like there just isn't that option for Quickley here, maybe. I mean, maybe he had a similar thing with Mitchell Robinson. I can't say I watched Knicks games in that much detail to know exactly how all the two-man pairings were working, but I agree with you in terms of keeping the dribble alive for Quickley. I do think that, especially for him, the pull-up three has to also be a fundamental part of his game that needs to be there. What are you seeing from that? I mean, I feel like there's times when I'm watching him, he's not necessarily taking as many threes as he could be, and I think Darko has echoed those similar sentiments. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on Quickley's pull-up game in particular.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's passing up a few too many of them, but I don't know. To me, it feels like the ones he's passing up are more of the off-the-catch variety.
Okay.
Where I would just like to see him have a bit of a quicker trigger. Like, some of the time it's just a little bit of a record scratch and he's letting the window close. With the pull-up threes, I don't think it's so much that he's like passing up opportunities as much as he's just like not really seeking them out as much as I feel like he could be. And I mean, especially in the context of this Raptors team, probably a big reason that they targeted him, went out and got him, is he had shown that ability. Like, again, with the Knicks, the first half of the season, he was like over 40% on pull-up threes. That was something the Raptors just did not have. And they need that from him, to, like, especially with the volume that he should be able to get those up at. So I think it's more about seeking out the opportunities for the pull-up and then not passing up the opportunities that he's getting off of the catch. And in terms of like the lob throwing and maybe like disguising the lob or playing that off of the threat of the floater, yes, it's true. Like, you don't really have that kind of a lob threat on this Raptors team, but that's another thing where that requires a little bit of patience, right? Like, you gotta kind of like put that on-ball defender on your back a little bit, like keep them in jail, give the rolling big a chance to get behind the screen defender, and that's what's going to open those opportunities up. And I think with Quickley, sometimes he's just not patient enough in those situations, not letting that play develop to where he'd even have the option to maybe disguise that floater or that lob.
Fair enough. Wolfon, I always love talking about this stuff with you, and we've run out of time to talk about who's the second best team in the East. We'll have to do that in person, I guess. Are you coming to the Pacers game quickly? Yes or no?
Yeah, I'll be there.
All right, I'll see you tomorrow then. We're going to take another break. Thanks to Joe Wolfon from The Score. Been your host, Wolu. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. When we come back, let's check in with a future four-time Olympian. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Ben Lou, continuing to be joined by co-host Blake Murphy. During the 5-minute break, we're furiously trying to comb through the video. Did Scottie actually have a conversation with Darko about what happened last night? And why is there so much confusion over it? Because honestly, you got to be pretty aligned with these things. And honestly, knowing that there was practice today and both guys were going to be made available, or at least requested in this case, there should be PR training with this kind of thing so that you at least have the same message. But hopefully we will sort that out. Again, until we fully get to hear those clips, which ideally we will have for segment 4. It's hard to make a judgment on. Of course, Grange was also there in person. We will get him on the line. It's turned into a whole thing, you know? It's turned into a whole thing.
And
It's,
look, sometimes these things can pop up, and they're a very momentary thing, and sometimes the response to that momentary thing turn it into a longer multi-day story, and that seems to be what we have here, because I came on off the top, and we had only heard from Darko at that point. I said, yeah, it's good. It sounds like he's like at least taking accountability for it, and that's the next step that you would want to see. And now again, we haven't watched from start to finish, so we're a little thin on context here because it happened live as we were on the show. But the context that we've been given from Scotty's part of the interview conflicts with Darko's presentation of this situation. And it's worth noting too that this happened in 2020, 2021 in Tampa Bay when Pascal Siakam fouled out of a game frustrated, and the team decided to bench him for a game. Now that was a different coach and a different player, and not a dissimilar situation. If you look at look at the 5 guys who were on the court at the end of the game last night. Tell me that didn't feel Tampa. So the situations are not dissimilar. And that was a front office decision. That was not a Nick Nurse decision with Pascal. That was a front office decision. So we'll see. I'll be interested to see how this shakes out. Not advocating for one side or the other. They would obviously have these conversations. But the fact that, he has gone up there and said, well, but no, we didn't have a meeting about it after Darko said they had a meeting about it is, look, it's going to extend as a media cycle now. That's for sure.
Remember, there was earlier this week, you asked me about the Ime approach, right? And Ime, when the Raptors play the Rockets in Toronto.
Benching Şengün and Green for 15 minutes, yeah.
Right. And then you asked me, could you see Darko doing that? And I told you, I was like, I don't think Darko has established that type of, like, ground rules with the players. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the same thing. Ime comes in, and it's like, my reputation is, I literally was tough on the 2 J's in Boston, who are both all NBA players and both like all-stars, been to the finals, all that kind of stuff, choked in the finals. Sorry, I had to squeeze that in there. But like, that's his standard. And so he goes to Houston and it's like, yo, you don't meet that? Like, sorry, Şengün, are you Jason Tatum? I'm sorry, Jalen Green, are you Jaylen Brown? Are you Jalen of a different color with the last name? Right?
Yeah.
You are not. So, of course, I'm going to apply the same standards to you. And of course, you have like, various vets on the floor who can kind of help establish that message as well. So you can do something like that in Houston. Like if something like that happened with Ime as the coach, do you think Scotty's playing the next game, or do you think there's any confusion the next day of practice about whether they met or not met? There should be no confusion over a conversation of this scale.
There also shouldn't be confusion over the messaging, right? Like,
well, that's a more PR issue. But
yeah, I don't think it is though. I think that could be a Darko issue as well. Like, okay, I'm not going to drag the PR team.
No, I'm not dragging the PR team. I'm just saying, like,
just like
this is
like part of that conversation between the coaches and Scotty Barnes should have been, hey, you need to be accountable for this also. Like, we can have this conversation, point this out to you, but like you've got to be accountable for this. Like I said earlier, like this now falls on him, whether it's him walking off the court early or just having a bad game or the team playing poorly. All those pieces of accountability that over the last couple of years have gone to first Kyle and DeMar, and then Kyle and Kawhi for the amount we were allowed to talk to him. Pascal, Fred was a huge, hey, that's the guy who has to come out after losses and things like that. Like, this is all part of it. So there's also an accountability to your teammates, I think, where he gets asked about it and he says, well, I'm just trying to help the team win. And it's like, okay, but that's not what you're getting asked about. You're getting asked about leaving your team on the bench with 3 seconds left in a game when, like, yeah, the game's over, but those 5 guys out there are like, Mo Gay got his first career bucket.
He did. I hope someone got the game ball for him.
Yeah, and I hope so.
Yeah, actually, I'm genuinely serious. Yeah.
And anyway, so I think there's like, yes, there's a messaging element, but also like part of this conversation, whether it's with the coaching staff or the front office, needs to be that there's an accountability element here to the entire team and Oregon. Like that's kind of what's on your shoulders at this point.
Well, we will have more discussions about this in segment 4 because
we don't have Nat yet, so I'm
endlessly curious. Yeah, I mean, the spoiler alert was we're trying to get Natalie Achonwa on the program to talk about the Canadian women's national team qualifying for Paris this past weekend. Bit of a, I mean, listen, it was a tough thing to wake up to a Sunday morning. I'm sure it was a tough thing to play in that game as well. Japan, I was not prepared for just how all over the place and overwhelming and fast and everything like that. Canada missed that chance to qualify for themselves, but of course Spain with the huge assist there. So we'll get Natalie on the line soon. But yeah, going back to the story here locally in Toronto, it's just like, is this something where you want to see the front office involved? Because as you mentioned, I didn't know that wrinkle, but the front office was the ones who acted for the Siakam incident. Does something similar have to happen here? I mean, Masai is in town.
And we also heard last year there was that, I think it was January, where Masai joined the team on the road trip or was already in New York for something else,
December,
and had to have a sit down with Scotty as well. And like, look, again, this is, to be clear, like, we're not talking about like, hey, it's the Scotty Barnes as the number one thing is over. Like, this is just this is part of the growth and development there. But yeah, I mean, where, like, under normal circumstances, I would love to say, no, this shouldn't be a front office thing. Like, this should be able to be handled by the locker room and stuff. But like, who is having the conversation with Scotty Barnes that commands the respect from him? Darko is a good guy and everyone like speaks the world of him.
Yep.
But like, he is a rookie head coach. Does he have the ability, and is it in his nature to sit down and have that kind of tough conversation with Scotty Barnes? Oh, obviously not, because they just had this conversation and then his scrum went the way that it did. So, and there's certainly not anyone in that locker room. Like, again, Garrett Temple's there, Kelly Olynyk's there, Bruce Brown, Jakob
Some of
Poeltl.
those guys just got there. Kelly can't say anything. He just got there.
Most of those guys just got there. And also, like, are
Same
they
thing
going to
with Bruce.
command the ear of, and like, this has been, look, having Thad and Otto and Garrett Temple around all season, there is a helpful macro cultural element to that, especially with some of the guys further down the roster. But like, is your star player hearing those voices when they're a star player? And like, maybe Garrett Temple's voice doesn't carry at that level with something that's something about being the face of the franchise and being the accountability piece for the entire team.
Yeah, this is a very fascinating story. We're going to get more details on this at 3:30 when we call Michael Grange. But in the meantime,
yeah, we got to break up the negativity with a little bit of a celebration here.
Thank you to Natalie Ajonwa, the rest of the women's national team for qualifying, and we will get to watch them play in Paris. Natalie, you're about to be a 4-time Olympian. How does that sound?
Makes me kind of feel old a little bit. But I mean, what an honor. This will be 12 years in Olympic quads that I've been playing with Team Canada. Almost actually closer to 15 actually being on Team Canada. So once again, just old.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but it's a part of this is also, well, she was the youngest player to ever play for the national team. So you got an early start here. You're not exactly Luis Scola at like 43 here for Argentina. So Natalie, you guys are going, but it looked a little touch and go there. So for anyone who missed it on Sunday, Canada lost and needed Spain to beat Hungary to qualify for the Olympics. Spain got down 22 points to Hungary and entered the fourth quarter down 14, but came back and pulled it off. Can you walk us through a little bit what it was like for you guys to be watching that game?
Whew. The mentality going into the game was try to control your own destiny. So of course, like, we were locked into the Japan game. A couple of shots, a couple fouls, something goes a little bit different and the game is won by Canada. So it was definitely heartbreaking for that outcome. But then we had to sit on the sideline and we had to watch. We had to watch Spain decide if we were going to go to the Olympics or not. And if you know any kind of history over the past couple quads here with Spain, we've always played Spain in tight games. So it was definitely written in stone that we were meant to go to the Olympics, because what a comeback, down 20 to win by 1. I've never celebrated another country winning, but them winning meant we won, and that we still get to keep this dream of Paris 2024 alive.
So, okay, can you take us behind the scenes or some of the logistics? Like, we heard, like, maybe some of the members were in the crowd watching physically. Some people were also some video behind the scenes of some of your teammates hugging each other, watching it on TV. So, like, how did it physically all go down in terms of you guys watching this performance from Spain that really ultimately saved Canada here?
Yeah, we were all kind of spread out. After the game, a couple players stayed at the arena. I went home temporarily. I went to the hotel to go hug my son, Mav, and I was heartbroken. So I went to gather myself at the hotel, and then I met up with like Bridget and Kia and Sammy. We were watching the game and just kind of just talking about anything but the game. And all of a sudden everyone's like, hey, the game's actually getting close. So we really locked in, and I cried. Kia was trying to convince me that I needed to play to LA before we saw the final result of the game. And she's like, just kidding. You can just play with Team Canada 6 more months because we're going to Paris. So
Hey,
it was all over the place.
Don't rule that out, though. 5-time Olympian sounds pretty good, too. I think only 4 women have ever done that, and only a couple of guys. Scola was one of only a handful on the men's side. Let's not rule it out, right?
No. I've decided that this will be my last Olympic game. So,
Okay.
of course, so much emotion, even more emotion was in that moment for me because I, for a second, was like, was that the last time I really put a Canada jersey on?
damn.
And, it turns out that God had a different plan, and I'm putting a jersey on again to represent Canada now here in Paris.
So, obviously, positive ending. You guys got there. It was meant to be. Spain helped you out. But it was close there. So you guys went 1-2 in this tournament. Close games against Spain and Japan that you weren't able to pull out. When we look ahead to what this team needs to do in Paris, what do you think you guys can learn from this one? What didn't click in this particular tournament that you guys can kind of learn from and do a little bit better with come Paris?
I think the fine details. It was a great reminder that it's really hard to do this. It's really hard to qualify for the Olympics. It's really hard to do it 4 times in a row for Canada basketball, our women's national team. So it was just a reminder that to compete and to play at the highest level, you have to do it every minute, 40 minutes. Because like you said, both those games were close for us, a couple possessions either way, and it would have been in the win column for us. So I think it's just a reminder that the details matter. And I went to a Olympic lab put on by the Canadian Olympic Committee a couple months ago in Quebec. And a couple of the speakers reminded you that if you want to kind of turn that page, if you want to get to the point where you're on the podium, where you're successful year after year, you have to do something different. And it can't just be, okay, we qualified and we're arriving. It has to be, where are you making those little sacrifices? Where is that 1% better coming on a daily basis, not just when you're getting together with your team? So I think us hanging on by a thread was just a reminder that you have to put that 1% change in every day.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the way you're mentioning it, now I'm thinking about it, like, could have very easily been a 3-0 tournament. And there were leads that could have been held on to and things like that. And of course, that's where those little margins really add up. I'm curious, because this is going to be your 4th time. For some of them, it will be their 1st time as well. What did you make of some of the younger members of the team and how they performed in this like super high pressure environment despite their young age?
Our coach Victor made a actually really good point at the beginning of the tournament that it's great to have experience, but sometimes you need that kind of fresh eyes, that deer in the headlights, Bambi vibe, where you don't overthink things because you've been there. And so to have players that are going to be entering their first Olympics or maybe their second Olympics, because Tokyo doesn't really count because it was such a different environment. It'll add some fresh energy for us. And then couple that with the experience of those have been to multiple Olympics. This will be Kia's 3rd as well. I think we'll have a great balance here of just people that are bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and then those that are like, okay, I know what it takes in this moment, and just mix it together. And I think we're going to have a great approach going into these games.
Yeah. And I think watching, these games here and some of the past runs, it's like you guys have a clear advantage on the inside. I mean, I thought you did a really good job, on the glass defensively, scoring when you could. I thought Kayla was really a big standout in this whole tournament run. What can you say about Kayla Alexander's performance?
Yeah, Kayla being named to All-Star 5, much, much, much deserved. She's put in the work. She's dedicated her time to Canada basketball, and you've even seen in her pro career how it's transitioning over here to our national team, and she's been dominant. I can't say anything more. A little tidbit that might be my claim to fame, because Kayla's being so great lately, that Kayla and I lived together when we were in high school. We went to Anita Basketball Academy by Canada Basketball. Yeah. When I was in the 10th grade and Kayla was in the 11th grade. So Kayla Alexander, my claim to fame was I lived with her, but she's been huge for our program, and I love to see the growth of her game and just how dominant and powerful she's been for us, and will be going into these games as well.
And an author. So make sure to check the book out.
Author, business owner, entrepreneur,
yeah,
all the things. And she balances it so well and makes it look so effortless.
What can't she do?
Royalty.
Yeah.
What can't she do?
Natalie, we mentioned earlier, you were the youngest player to suit up for the national team. And I wonder with your experience with that, what that was able to do for you early in your career. You guys had Silas Swords on the roster for this one. Obviously, a big part of this program's future. What do you think being with you guys for this event did for her, and what can that early experience do for her as she goes forward in her career?
Even in the past year of Sai being on our team, just seeing her growth and how she's transformed her body, how she's like I love the big guard moments is what I call them, but there was a couple where she was taking it to the rim and she wasn't soft. And I was like, that's grown women basketball. And that's the difference when you're able to pull up some of our younger players like I did myself and get them that experience at what a pro level would be. It's a different level. And she's still in high school. So to see the growth that she'll also have when she gets to the NCAA and her college program, the future of Canada basketball is bright when you have these young ones being able to be dominant at this point already.
There you go. Well, Natalie, appreciate you for joining us on the show. We're very much looking forward to seeing. Well, first off, we're very much looking forward to seeing the men finally join you guys at the Olympics. I mean, it's about time, really. Like, you know, where have y'all been? But no, seriously, congratulations once again, and we'll look forward to cheering you guys on in the summertime.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have them here too. First time since 2000, so it'll be a Canada basketball party. So cheer us on for sure. Thanks for having me.
For sure. Natalie Achonwa, soon to be four-time Olympian.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's crazy. It's Donovan Bennett had a really good feature at sportsnet.ca with Natalie as well about Natalie wanting to, help continue to make the women's basketball space better for moms, because Natalie mentioned her son. She's a recent mother as well. So a lot of fun stories there brewing for Canada's 2024 women's roster. On the men's side, by the way, Tim Bontemps dropped his latest MVP straw poll at ESPN.
It's straw poll season?
Yeah,
All
which
right.
I'm, so this is the 2/3 mark. So I'm a part of that, obviously.
Nice.
Shea number 2 to Jokic right now.
Yeah, how many times did you vote for Shea?
Tell you who was number 1 on my ballot.
Yeah, was he number 1 on your ballot for real? Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. You've been saying that, so I'm happy you did that in the straw poll.
Yeah.
Still behind Jokic, though.
Yeah. Pretty, not significantly. It's a pretty close-ish race overall, but Jokic had, the lion's share of the first place votes.
Yeah, the top 5 in the latest Bontemps poll. Shouts to Bontemps for doing this every time. Jokic, SGA, Giannis, Luka Doncic, and Kawhi Leonard. 7 other players getting votes. No Joel Embiid, of course, is a notable one, but I mean, I think everyone's just anticipating that he can't be voted for now because of the injury and the times missed. I think he's guaranteed to already eclipse that mark with him missing at least 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to
issue.
get there.
Yeah, so it's too bad for Embiid because I think he probably would have led this poll.
Yeah.
Or at least been 1A, 1B at minimum. Honestly, I think there's a good case for him to lead. But yeah, I mean, damn, SGA, man. What would he have to do to actually win MVP? Does OKC need to win 5 more games than Denver or something?
So I don't know. OKC's a half game up on Denver right now in the standings, so it's not just a record thing. Jokic is obviously, the best and most impactful player in the league. But if we start to look at some of, obviously Shea has done a lot of very cool things. There's also Shea, if we look at some of the advanced metrics, and you don't want to vote just based on this, we do try to, zoom out and capture using something like, EPM and the estimated wins added that produces. Shea is first by a good margin over the rest of the league. And it's actually Giannis who's second.
Yeah.
And if you prefer Basketball Reference and their win shares or whatever, BPM, whatever. You look at any of these catch-alls and they're imperfect, but a lot of them agree that Shea has been the most impactful player in the league. And part of that is, OKC, what these models will look at is this model doesn't rate Kenrich Williams as anything. This model doesn't rate Jalen Williams, the backup guy, as anything. This model doesn't really care that much about, hey, the 4 games of Gordon Hayward they're going to get from here, whatever. It looks at Shea in an environment where, yeah, Chet's been really good. The other Jalen Williams has been really good, but Shea's very clearly the leader that has an on-off impact. He's putting up remarkable stats. The fact that he leads the league or is close to the league lead in steals. Steals is one of the, we obviously can't quantify defense very well, but steals feeds these metrics on the defensive end pretty well. And Shea's obviously improved a lot at the point of attack too. So what you're seeing is you can still vote Jokic, and I had Jokic number 2 and would fully understand him as the number 1 vote. But if you care about those metrics, they are saying, hey, Shea's caught up to at least make this a pretty reasonable conversation and is in some cases ahead of him. So, I've been pretty consistent in my thinking Shea should be at the top of that. I wavered a little bit when Embiid was, really cooking and averaging the most points per minute and highest true shooting percentage we've ever seen and stuff like that.
Yep,
But
good
Embiid's not going
case.
to be in the conversation anymore. And I think it's a reasonable discussion between Jokic and Shea right now.
I guess my only thing with Jokic is like last year was such a high standard for him, and obviously last year he didn't win MVP, right? Embiid got the MVP last year. He got the Finals MVP, which is the more important one. But even compared to last year, Jokic shot 63% from the field. This year he's at 58. He averaged 9.8 assists last year in the same amount of minutes played. This year he's at 9. He's rebounding a little bit higher than before, 12.2, 11.8. But with, he's shooting more often, but he's actually scoring at a lower efficiency. Like, I'm not discrediting Jokic's MVP case by any means. I think he'd be totally valid as if you voted him first. I just feel like, especially when you got to win, like, your third MVP now, and eventually maybe your fourth MVP, like, you got to raise the bar each and every single time, or you got to be like lapping the field type of thing, And I'm not saying that Shea should get it because he hasn't gotten it before, but I feel like Shea just keeps taking his game to different levels, and I actually seen a higher level from Jokic already.
Yeah, it's a weird one because then it gets into, well, is it most valuable or is it most improved to get to most valuable?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like voter fatigue is a real thing. We know it. We've seen it. It's, I don't know. I do think there is, whether fair or not, a cost to Jokic has been at this level, and the Nuggets have been at this level. Thunder are the new funner thing, and I don't know how to, like, personally. And to be clear, I don't have an actual vote in this. This is just for Tim Bontemps' exercise.
Got you.
I don't know how you would be able to strip those things apart when you sit down with it, right? Like, you can't control for that in your own brain how much you value one versus the other. I just think it's, like, statistically, feel-wise, record-wise, watching how those two teams operate, when those two teams play against each other, it feels very, very close. And I feel good about Shea at the 2/3 mark here.
I think for Shea, too, it's not just necessarily what he can do in terms of getting better numbers or stats than Jokic. It's almost impossible to do that. I think for him, it's about the moments, like the head-to-head matchups, the game winners, those memorable moments. I think back to, this is not the Westbrook winning MVP year. This is totally different, to be clear. But in that year, it was like, maybe it was him, or maybe it's Harden, or maybe whatever. And it's like, Kawhi, I think, was in the mix too. And it was like, nah, he hit that game winner in Denver to, like, take them out of the playoffs. And, like, I think that one shot alone pushed so many people over the top towards Westbrook. Moments decide a lot of MVP races as well. And I think for SGA, I mean, if what he needs to do is hit some more game winners, I don't think that's an issue for him.
No.
He's very good at that. So, yeah, we're rooting. Man, it's such a good moment for Canada basketball, man. Good thing the Raptors have pivoted to a let's acquire as many Canadians as possible strategy.
Yeah, might need some more, change the talking points right now. I don't know. Corey Joseph's a free agent.
Kelly was good last night, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of Kelly, real quick, before we go to break?
Yeah, I mean, he's
Kelly
good, man. He's Kelly Olynyk. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get us to the break and sprinkle in a little bit. There was not much positive from last night's game. Kelly was fine. He did a better job on Wemby than the others. Had a couple nice plays. I don't know, man. I love Kelly, but it doesn't. It's obviously not enough on a night like last night.
Yeah. That's true.
Let's take a break and let's get some of this audio going and talk to Grange.
Let's take that break and let's finally get to the bottom of this. What exactly happened at Raptors practice today? Anyway, I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Lou, joined by Blake Murphy. We're going to finally hear those clips from practice today because a bit of confusion, at least based on sort of the way it was tweeted out. I think that there might just be some confusion that happened, at the press conference. So I'm looking forward to actually getting a sense of what actually went on in Raptors practice in terms of Darko and Scotty talking about what happened last night, the accountability piece, and all of that. So first we have a clip just of Scotty discussing that in detail with Michael Grange, who we're going to bring on after these clips.
I wanted to hear your version of how you ended up being off the bench and into the locker room before everyone else.
I was just like 2 or 3 seconds left in. I just left the game. So I just left the game.
I mean, did you think the game was over, or did you just like kind of had enough at that point?
No, I was just 3 seconds left. Yeah. It was all going to the locker room. That's really it.
Going through this process, and
how would that be a good look for your teammates, though?
Huh?
How would that be a good look for your teammates?
I don't know. Left the game early. guess you said the clip went viral, so you know it was a bad look. You know, it was a mistake by my part. You know? If it affected him in any way, you know, it's a mistake by me.
The situation you're in, kind of the lead of the team, and
I think we're all leaders.
one of the leaders. And so, but when you're kind of the emotion you play with, when it's good, it's it's very obvious. The whole building, but at times it looks like you get frustrated there, and we see it sometimes when you hand on your head or slow to get back in time. So, is that something that's been pointed out to you? That's something you're aware of?
I think more when I'm frustrated or emotional, it's more on my part. I had like 4 turnovers in that first quarter. So just frustrated, mad at myself. Just got to take care of the ball, and it led to easy, fast break points. Showing emotion, not getting back, and it costs us on that part. So it's more me being frustrated myself in the way I'm playing, and it's not really nothing to do with everybody else. Just more frustrated on my part.
But I guess is it you kind of recognize that the camera's on you all the time, the whole building's watching you. It's something that you got to be a little bit conscious of, or not?
I guess the camera's watching me. I guess just playing the game and just trying to win. Not really caring with the cameras. I'm just trying to play to win, help the team win, any way possible.
Okay, Blake, what did you think of that first off before we play the Darko's half of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little disappointing given the way Darko framed it. And again, we're going to play Darko's part. But, we came on here at 2 o'clock. Scotty hadn't spoke yet. We were only reacting to the Darko side. And Darko presented a much more accountable version of Scotty Barnes than Scotty Barnes presented there, where, the typical, like, if it offended someone, then I apologize kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Pushing back on Grange, calling him a leader of the team, to say we're all leaders, which is like true, but you want to take on some ownership there. And I don't know, it just it didn't seem like to him, he thought it was a big deal at all, which is, your prerogative. And again, I keep couching this to make sure it's clarified, because I know how sound bites work and stuff like that. Like, it's not the end of the world. He can improve from this and learn from it and get better. But yeah, the day after, and after having talked to the coaches, that's not exactly the messaging you probably would have preferred as the Raptors. You probably would have liked a little bit more straightforward accountability of, that's my bad. I shouldn't have done that. I understand why that's a bad look while teammates are still on the court playing and scoring their first career buckets. And the we were all leaving the court. No, they weren't. There was nobody around you. It was only you that left the court. So, and then the no, we didn't talk about that element of it that also didn't make it, which we'll play now, is not great.
Right. Yeah. So let's run that second clip as well.
Leaving the bench, yeah, we did. We talked about it. He thought that it was a shot clock violation, and the siren was already off. He was not aware of it, and yes, we did have a talk this morning about it. I just brought awareness that him as a leader of the team, he has to be aware of those kind of things, and that he cannot overlook, and that obviously being that guy, you're gonna be always under microscope. So he's aware of it, and he regrets his act from yesterday. But it was genuine, just not being aware.
Has Darko, chatted with you about whether kind of leaving the court early or just getting back on defense and those kind of things plays recently?
No, we didn't have no conversation about it. We all know. I guess we all can see that I'm frustrated a little bit. I think that's more what it is.
You guys didn't have a meeting or anything this morning?
We talked about the game, but that was really the primary thing.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of confusion. It feels like we need the context around it, because it's one of those things where if you only watch the video portion, maybe you don't get the full context. So let's talk to somebody who was actually there for that press conference, the man who was asking some of those questions himself. Michael Grange of Sportsnet. Grange, what should we we don't have Grange just quite yet. Okay, we are working to get Grange on the line. Sorry. Saw the note. But yeah, we will get to Grange's side of it, because I think there is a confusion. Like, what exactly happened here? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, look,
seriously, what is going on? It's making something that is obviously a bad look, but you could take accountability for it and then you just move on.
Yeah. So that's
it's making it into like a much more confusing ordeal. Like, is there not discussions? You know what I mean? Like,
So
what is
look,
happening?
the easy, well, not easy, but like the simplest read on this is they all talked about it and it was brought up. And in Scotty's mind, it wasn't like a meeting about that. And that's how he answered the question. Whereas Darko's trying to play the public messaging a little bit better. But yeah, this isn't a great thing. They came out of whether they had a meeting or it was just part of the film discussion or whatever. They're clearly not on the same page about the level of whether this was an issue and why exactly that was the case. And again, you can feel like it's a non-issue, but the team, the day after, the coach and the star player who left the court early should be on the same page about whether that was okay and why or why not.
Yeah. Okay. We do have Grange on the line. Grange, what exactly went on in practice today? And did they actually have a talk about what went wrong yesterday at the end of the game?
Well, not according to Scotty, right? And so I think, if we're really going to parse this, like Zapruder it type thing, which is kind of what we've been left to do, they did talk, but the talk was about the game. And if you kind of gone through this transcript a couple of times, when he's asked at one point, has Darko spoken to you about things like, getting back on defense, leaving the bench early last night? Like, that was the gist of that question. I'm pretty close to accurate on that, I think. And, he said there was no conversation. And then I asked, so you didn't have a meeting this morning? And he said, well, we talked about the game. That was the primary thing. So there was a conversation. The subject of that conversation, Scotty didn't want to elaborate on or heard the conversation a little differently than Darko kind of explained it to us. I kind of looked through Darko's answer and, maybe we overinterpreted how significant or kind of specific this meeting was. But, I think we're kind of getting lost in the weeds here. I think really the headline is, this is what happens, and this is going to be part of the process when you have a guy who's, we all know, is extraordinarily talented, who's really in a job he's not ready for right now. And, he's learning on it. And, part of that is how he kind of comports himself on the floor. And when things aren't going the way they need to go, or he wants them to go, or he wish they would. And I'm not calling out saying he's like, it's a big, it's not like he's a menace or anything, but, we've seen it, like the kind of flailing of the arms, the refs, the kind of the slow runs back, that kind of stuff. And another part of it, and it's probably the least important, but it's not insignificant, is how he presents, his face and they call it face of the franchise, right? And so it's how he presents the Raptors publicly in all kinds of contexts. But one of them is, in moments like this, when you've got drilled by one of the worst teams in the league and you're coming off 2 bad blowout losses, that you can kind of, present yourself in a way that's going to make things sound like they're going to be okay. Maybe that's a way to put it.
So Darko said he doesn't see the need for additional discipline here. I only bring it up because there was a situation like this, very similar, and none of us were there in Tampa Bay, but we certainly got the reports and the intel that, hey, Pascal Siakam did this. Nick Nurse wasn't the one deciding that there was I guess technically they called it benching, not suspension, because suspension gets into some CBA and labor stuff. But he got sat down for a game. So there is precedent not that long ago, player in a similar spot kind of being handed the keys for, not the first time, but hey, you're the leader now. You can't act that way. I only ask this because that precedent is there. But after Scotty's, presser today and that, not lack of accountability, but not accountability to the same degree that Darko had painted there. Do you think Darko will feel similarly, that this is hey, let's just move on from it?
I think they will move on from it. And I think it's worth kind of mentioning too, in this context is, so I'm sure you could discuss that situation with Pascal. There was I think 26 seconds left. He fouled out, left the floor, in an empty arena in Tampa, and kind of heard about it later. But it was interesting when, and I brought it up to Darko and I brought it up to Scotty too, that this is the context with which we're pursuing this. In my list of basketball sins, you know, a disgusted player walking off the floor with 2 seconds left or whatever number it was, you know, having just got your butt kicked, and his in particular, you know, that's not really all that high on it for me. That's just my own personal.
Right.
He's, you know, and similarly when it happened with Pascal, like I don't know all the background to it, but you know, a guy fouling out, getting drilled, and you know, not having a great night, and decides to walk it off. Again, they made it a big deal. I didn't, and so, you know, so that was the context. So I brought it up to Darko, to be fair. And he says, well, no, it was a different situation. There was like 3 minutes left. And no, there was 26 seconds left. And I only mention this because at some point, somebody should have made the effort to go, this is why people will be asking about this. This is why people are making what seems like a small thing into a slightly bigger thing, because as you point out, it's happened before and this is how it was handled. And similarly, when I mentioned it to Scotty, it was the first he'd ever heard of it, or it seemed like it was the first he'd ever heard of it. He seemed surprised by the whole thing. And those are little things where I think an organization can support a player and make sure that everyone's kind of knows what's happening and why this seemingly innocuous thing, you know, some people have a different standard for it. I'm just saying it's not something that would have kind of jumped off the page for me, other than it's happened before. And so, you know, so that's where that's a little bit of a wrinkle here that's kind of interesting is one, the coach was aware of it, but didn't really understand specifically the issue. And then the player had no clue about it in terms of the context. And, you know, I think that probably would have been worth making sure everything was nailed down on as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the end of the game, honestly, at that point, the result was already over. It didn't affect the impact of the game. So, you know, that's one thing. I think the bigger thing is just how, you know, engaged and how connected he is, play to play, quarter to quarter, minute to minute, that you needed to see during the game. That could have actually changed the impact of the game, was getting back in transition. And you can make a whole reel of just moments where he didn't get back in transition, or, you know, missed opportunities offensively here or there, whatever. That happens. Like, that to me is the bigger thing. Honestly, even how you present yourself to the media, to be honest, that's not really like controllable in a way. You know what I mean? You know, like he just is what he is, you know? And like, I think for me, that's much, much less important than, you know, how engaged are you in terms of running back in transition, you know? And I think that almost when we have this whole big discussion about, like, you know, Pascal did this, is he going to also get, like, that's fine. I think the bigger thing is just in the game, like, just stay engaged and compete the entire way through. And that's not to mean that he doesn't do that sometimes. Some games he's the hardest competitor. I mentioned after the Cleveland game, he was awesome in that game. So connected, so engaged. Didn't change the result, but I loved the game that he played, and he had a triple-double. The next game, though, you know, you see the lacking. So that's, to me, the bigger issue here.
Right. And it's all, again, like I said, like, this is a guy who's been put into a situation that everyone is hoping he'll eventually grow into. And, you know, there's reason for that. We've seen it plenty of times. I mean, this guy's pretty special. But, you know, he is not there. He is not there yet. And really, kind of the game-to-game fluctuations with, I won't say his energy, his effort or energy level, but sort of his ability to deal with frustration as it's unfolding in a game. You know, it's not probably where it needs to be. And I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to hold him to a standard that's unrealistic, but I think it needs to get better. And I think, you know, these are sort of the situations you find yourself in. And I think, you know, the organization needs to kind of really make sure that these kinds of things are being addressed. And I think the broader context here a little bit with Scotty is a lot of the kind of narrative last year was a kind of a friction, I guess, between some of the older guard, and, you know, we can probably safely say that's Fred, and, you know, some of the younger guys and Scotty. And, you know, sorry, my wife is calling me. She doesn't know I'm on the radio.
It's all right. We got interrupted by a cat last segment, and we're all good.
It's all good. But, you know, and that was sort of kind of the crux of that is this guy is being, you know, offered a lot and being given a ton of responsibility, a ton of opportunity. And you know, in other ways, is he ready for it the way he's going to need to be? And I think last year the answer was probably no. I think this year we've all seen tremendous progress, but now he's on an island, right? And if you kind of look at, you know, kind of one of the subplots last night was, and we've seen it multiple times. If you look at that Oklahoma City game as well, and we talk about lack of engagement or maybe, you know, not looking like he's kind of, well, guess he's getting guarded by, right?
Yep.
Like Jeremy Sochan was in his shirt, and behind him was Wembanyama. And at this stage of his career, Scottie wasn't really prepared, and there wasn't anyone who could lift that burden for him. Lou Dort made him disappear at the end of that OKC game. I look back at the Clippers game in LA when Kawhi Leonard decided for a quarter to play defense, and Scottie had no answer. OG Anunoby against him in New York, same thing. Now, Scottie Barnes isn't the only person who can't manage that kind of attention, because those are some of the best defenders in the league. But the job is to figure that out. The job is to be able to counter that threat either with your own ability and your own skill, or use your own ability and skill to allow your teammates to affect the game. And, you know, that's something that, you know, against some really elite defensive attention, he struggled with. And I think sometimes those struggles carry over into how he carries himself and comports himself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the other part too, is just bigger picture wise, that, you know, it's on him now. Like, it's, you know, for example, Quickly had a bad game last night. RJ, I didn't think it was that effective either, you know? And, you know, there's very little discussion about those two other elements, but that's because we expect way more of Scottie.
They're not getting the rookie scale extension Supermax this summer.
Right. So it's like, even the financial part, I'm whatever. I mean, obviously I want to
It's more
resign
about
Scottie,
like what, I don't mean the dollar amount. I mean what that signifies. Like, only a dozen guys in the league get that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the path to this whole thing working is Scottie taking it to the next level. He's the leader on the court, off the court, everything. Like, the franchise player means franchise player. You know what I mean? And so these moments of growth are actually going to be pretty important, because we're always going to be there celebrating every single moment of success. When he makes the All-Star, when he makes Rookie of the Year, when he has a great game. Last time when they played Wemby, they came back and won, and we were all here being like, wow, Scottie outplayed Wemby. And we made that comeback in the fourth quarter in his gym. That was amazing. Won in an overtime. That was all incredible, right? But then I think there are other steps too. And this is the other really important part of development, is like, you need to reflect on these things and just like improve and get better from it. And when it gets put in the spotlight, hopefully there is a response. That's all I'm hoping for. Like, fine, he plays the next game against the Pacers, against Pascal tomorrow. Come out with a response. The best case scenario for the Raptors tomorrow, literally for their own pick, because they own Indiana's pick, but also narratively for the franchise going forward, is Scottie goes out, puts up a 30-point triple-double, and they beat the Pacers. They shut down Pascal. Probably he shuts down Pascal. And all of a sudden, you feel really good about, hey, they pivoted in this direction. We now see why. But
yeah, I mean, no, I agree with you. And I think that's completely on the table. But, you know, and I'll reference Darko in this. I don't think this will be the last time we kind of look at, you know, because we sort of over scrutinize, it's inevitable, but, you know, and we see something and find a shortcoming, but it just can't be, you know, I think the concern is that you fall into a pattern of stagnation. And maybe that was a bit of the story for a big chunk of last year. And I think really this year, as great as he's been, like his December and January production is not nearly where it was. Sorry, his January and February production is, like for the past month, his production has fallen off pretty significantly and or measurably. And, you know, is that going to be the story? Is he going to sort of kind of have, you know, post All-Star kind of coast to the finish line, or is he going to reach to another level? Like, to Blake's point, they're just, you know, you measure it by the money, but really it's the direction of an enterprise that is being invested in this guy. And so details matter. And it's not just wins or losses, it is careers, it's jobs. There's a lot of people are, you know, say nothing of fans, right? Who are spending good money after bad and supporting something that is so dear to them. And they're kind of rising and falling with all of this. But, you know, the trajectory of an organization is affected by its players, and things don't go right. We know what happens. People do lose jobs. People do things go badly for other people, and so that's why it's important. The sooner an athlete kind of grasps that and understands that it's more than just having a good game or having a bad game, the further along everyone gets. And nobody's doubting, I don't think, Scotty's passion for the game. Nobody's doubting his talent, certainly. He's by all accounts good character. Like he's never been in any issues or problems. But it's when somebody's going to be writing the kind of checks he's going to be getting, it's fair, I think, for the expectations to be very high.
Yeah. Okay. Really quickly, just to both of you, do you feel like Darko is the kind of coach, based on what he's shown so far and the relationships he's established, to just handle accountability going forward? Not about Scotty, just in general.
We're going to find out.
We're about to find out. Okay. Good answer.
Real quick. I mean, he was asked that, and he says, "Look, I'm never going to hang my guy out to dry in public.
Clearly.
But in private, the conversations are direct, they're honest, and he's willing to go to go into those directions." And I have asked questions of previous players, guys he's worked with in the past, and he does have that reputation that it's like he builds a relationship strong enough that he can be honest enough that he can tell players what they really need to hear. And
okay, that's good.
Doing it at the NBA level, I mean, it's a different beast, right? But that's how he answered that question when we asked him today.
Okay. Well, I think to Blake's point, we will see, and hopefully there's a big response tomorrow. But Granger, I appreciate you. I'm sure you weren't expecting this exciting of a practice when you went down there today.
Never a dull moment.
Never really is a dull moment. Michael Grange of Sportsnet. Read his piece about the game as well last night.
Yeah, great Wemby piece.
Great Wemby piece. You can't watch Wemby do what he did and not just be like completely hyperbolic, over the moon type of thing,
Yeah, I agree. It was really fun, and it was a little weird to like put that in the pocket for a second because of the Scotty situation.
Yeah.
Also, like we haven't even mentioned, Grady Dick had another really good game.
Dude, none of this matters, man.
I know, but the Grady Dick thing,
to the main thing, it doesn't matter.
But the Grady Dick thing is actually something that does matter the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
Grady, no, you're right. Grady had a good game, and I want to take the time to acknowledge that as well. Grady, congratulations. It was great to see him come off the bench and just steady things down. I was not expecting that from someone so young. That's really impressive.
A tiny question for you that's maybe a conversation for another day, but we got a minute to fill. Will you swap Grady for Gary at some point just to see what it looks like
in the starting lineup? Yeah.
Like he's here longer term, right? Like it's a more certain thing that he's going to be the guy playing with those other four.
I mean, I would probably wait until Gary misses a game, like there might just things come up, and if he misses a game, you try him in the role and then you get maybe a little bit more information and establish him a little bit more. I do feel like you're firmly slamming the door on Gary, like you're not coming back if you do that. But I mean, I also understand based on the performance of this season that if you choose to go in that direction, it's an understandable one. Thought that for Gary last night as well, man. What's going on with the transition? Like why? Why?
I don't understand, man.
I like Gary. We have Gary Sr. on the show sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't understand the transition.
He's shooting 31% over his last 6 games in general, and it's got to be less than that in transition.
Dude, I don't get it. Transition is like...
It's the easy ones.
It is the easy ones. But, look, lots to cover with this Raptors team.
Somehow.
Somehow. That does it for us today. I've been your host, Will. You've been listening to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, brought to you by Campbell's new Chunky Spicy Soup. It's time to get fired up. Make sure you find The Raptor Show where you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. Thanks once again to producers Amit Mann, our board producer Derek Bandale, Jennifer Rolnick, David Sis, Jeremy Manitai helping behind the scenes. Big thanks to our guests, Michael Grange, Natalie Achanwa, Joe Wolfon. I'll talk to you soon.